from an undisclosed location in the Great Western Desert in the land of the free and autonomous Native American people, the 2024 presidential campaign leading X time to return all US land back to their rightful owners. This is the BenZionPodcast. TechnoCommunism.
Welcome back to the BenZionPodcast, also known as the TechnoCommunism show, also known as the BenZionist agenda. And what, my friend, is this insidious agenda whispered and spoken of in hushed tones in the darkest recesses of the tech world? Well, it's simply trying to build a humane and sustainable economic system using emerging technology. The simplest of things, mystified by capitalists, people on the wrong side of history, and that's why I do this program. That's why I share it with people who are socialists, favorably inclined even to revolutionary action. And that's why I talk about emerging technology on this program, also talking about articles like the ones I'm going to share with you today that have to do with things that these tech bros, people who don't like Benzion very much, already know, already talking about, to share it with folks who may be a little better view of the world overall, in the hopes that they will bring those technologies to you. All of us need to unite in common purpose to this. And when I see these tech people talking about things like the potential emergence at this moment of artificial general intelligence, chatbots with human-level abilities, and other devices, other platforms, other advanced algorithms with human-level abilities, I see them saying, the contradictions start to sharpen in their minds. They realize that they are perhaps not bringing the world together, not standing for a humane and sustainable economic system, not standing in opposition to a Western status quo that's killing the planet. And they say, perhaps this is happening a little faster than I thought. Zoltan Nisfin, one of the worst of these people, I see him saying this, perhaps this is happening a little faster than I thought. Perhaps I should be thinking a little bit more in terms of everyone else and not just thinking about myself and the powerful. But they don't really, they'll pay lip service to this from time to time. In due time, all of these people will join the techno-communist cause or something very near like it. But today, what you'll see people do, and I could say this of almost every person, some of these articles came into my feed through other means, but of the people that I know to be human beings sharing this material, I can say this almost the same thing of them. Zoltan Nisfin is not the only devil in human skin out there. Most of these people, unfortunately, this reflects the general failings of the capitalist class and the West. So it's about the same number in tech circles that you would see anywhere else. One such person who I've seen post in maybe a dozen tech-related groups on Facebook, and it seems to be a group of folks from the Philippines, not just one person, but they seem to be posting some quite similar content. And I keep looking at it. It's a critique of transhumanism, maybe a little bit from a religious perspective, which is none too fascinating to me. But so I'll share one of these posts. This is from Amalia Devendera, and she posted in a group called Transhumanism and Religion. Is transhumanism a religion? No, maybe. Should transhumanism be related to religion? Absolutely not. Are you fucking kidding? But there's an awful lot of people in the West, people who basically are upholding white supremacist and unsustainable practices of other kinds. And if you're a Christian and you're a light-skinned person and you live in Europe or the United States, you, my friend, are a white supremacist. There's no one more white supremacist than you, except for maybe just the guy who works at the Heritage Foundation, literal people wearing white hoods. You are a white supremacist. There is no fascism in the West without Christian nationalism. So if you're trying to excuse Christian nationalism on some basis, oh, we're one of the good guys, what you're really doing is you see a world that's dying, and you see the institutions that are responsible for that, and you're taking time out of your day to make excuses for those institutions. That's who you are. And to a lesser extent, that's who you are. I just got off the telephone with a friend of some years who I invited on the program, Native American friend, and who's been a real source of inspiration to me. And I said, you know about my podcast. I'd be remiss if I didn't invite you on the show. I know you're going to have reasons, and I can already guess what they would be why you wouldn't do it. Another friend that I invited on the show, it's, the reason is even clearer. And this person actually maybe does watch the show sometime, IJS. This person has has the professional reasons. I don't want to say the real name or precisely the professional reasons why they wouldn't come on the program, but they're interested in this material. And that might describe some of the people in the 120 or so people who are regularly getting this show across their feed. That might describe a few of the people that are following this program at this time. They're interested in technosocialism, and they're even interested in Marxist tech accelerationism and revolutionary techno-optimism. Not all exactly the same thing, but they are prevented by a society which keeps people from taking the right course. And people like the Transhumanist Party are people who are scheming to see that more people will not take that correct course. So that's why they mentioned the Heritage Foundation. They have somebody who's not on their board, a few cops on their actual board, but this guy is not on their board. But he has an undue influence over the key decision makers in that organization, and he shows up at all of their meetings. And that's the organization is called the Heartland Foundation. It's a smaller organization with more or less the same mandate as the Heritage Foundation. This is a white nationalist organization, the Transhumanist Party. They should just change their name to the Techno-Fascist Party. That would be more appropriate. They're not real transhumanists, nor are almost all the people that call themselves transhumanists. I got back from a trip just to the other side of downtown, and I stopped and talked to a gentleman on the way back named AJ. And AJ lives in a tent. He's an unhoused person, and he wanted to ask me about my electric tricycle. I ride around on an electric tricycle. Sometimes somebody says, "Hey, buddy, I like your tricycle," and then I'll stop and talk to them for a few minutes, and maybe try and inject some revolutionary consciousness into the conversation, as I did with our friend AJ. And but the main thing AJ was asking me about was, where can I buy a trike like this? And I told him where I bought it, which is not a place where you can actually buy a trike like this. I bought it from someone at a co-op. They don't retail or otherwise sell this sort of thing regularly. But I gave him some ideas of where he could find it around town. And maybe the next time I see him, he'll be riding an electric trike, pulling his things around. But this is all too common in this town, right? AJ is somebody with medical issues, significant medical issues. He gets and the fascist United States have not wholly failed him in that regard. Although I would argue that anybody that's ever spent any time on the street has been wholly failed by this fascist country. But the fascist United States does give him some disability. He gets a check every month for his living expenses, but it's not enough for him to pay rent. And because there's not a housing authority or these other structures that I mentioned routinely on this show, living wage for folks, or jobs guarantee for folks, or a public health service for folks, he would benefit from all of these things, all four of those. But because he is still unhoused and has been chronically unhoused for a half a dozen years, I believe I've lived and spent time in this area for a half a dozen years, and I've seen him around for a half a dozen years. So I bought a bottle of water once from him when it was really hot. This guy is imagine that this is your life, and think and consider that there are 200 nations on Earth where you might have been born, where a person, AJ is a person with a keen mind, an interest in the world around him, a desire to do right. And if AJ had been born in almost any of those other 200 countries, he'd now have spent 6 years living in a tent. The United States is a fascist country, and the cruelty is the point of this in fascism. It's the fascists have to do the bare minimum to maintain a functioning civil society. So they do offer, in a limited way, benefits to people of this kind, as AJ is an example of. But AJ is not free to live his best life. He's not free to elevate his mind or take real action on behalf of humankind. He's not free to do those things because the cruelty is the point. These institutions are quite intentionally hobbled, quite intentionally. We've referenced the Powell Memorandum and the neoliberal era I say this quite often, some neoliberal this, neoliberal that. This is a time in history where institutions like this were weakened so that elitist institutions could be strengthened, private resources funneled into the hands of a small few, the ruling elites. That's the function of neoliberalism. That's the function of capitalism. That's the function of U.S. capitalism. The very worst of it in history. Fascist history's most successful fascist country, and make no mistake. The thing that will be the death of us all. This planet is dying. The United States' only real job description is to help kill it. Its military is the worst polluter, but also its military and all of its influence is leveraged to protect other super polluters. All the other polluters that are nearly as bad as the U.S. military, or on that order of magnitude, the United States will bend over backwards to protect. They won't protect you. They'll do what they can not to protect you. They'll allow a private rail line, Norfolk Suffolk, to blow up a huge amount of vinyl chloride over Ohio, rendering potentially hundreds of miles more or less unlivable, polluting waterways, a tremendous environmental disaster. Why was this done? So that a small amount of money could go into private hands. Those people aren't going to suffer. Those people have a home in the Bahamas. Those people have 3 homes. They're bi-coastal elites. Those people aren't going to suffer. It's you that are going to suffer. We can't allow these kinds of things to exist. If you are not a techno-communist, a person not only interested in a humane and sustainable economic system, but a person interested in using the powerful new technologies at our disposal to see that come to pass, you, my friend, are on the wrong side of history. And I thank you for taking the first step of watching this program and subscribing. You should give this subscription button. Some of you have I shared this button with. Give this subscription button to your friend. Share it with them. Because there's no point in talking to people like Zoltan Disfin or Dan Elton or Gennady Stolyarov of the Transhumanist Party. Those people are bought and paid for neoliberal shills. And there's really no point in talking to any tech person at all because they have these same liberal class failings, maybe sometimes saying, hey, we want to do the right thing. Okay, let's do the right thing. Well, let's not go nuts. When you actually say well, all the things that I've just said, they shut down. But there are real human beings with beating hearts in their chests out there. And you should share this kind of material with them and bring them into the techno revolution. Amalia de Vendera is an anti-transhumanist. What does she have to say? Are you prepared to become an advanced superhuman? Enhanced superhuman? Same difference. Risks associated with enhanced bodies include the potential for espionage using contact lens cameras, and more concerningly, the risk of a stratified human race divided into those who cannot afford enhancements and those who can. Where do you think the distinction between a human and a cyborg should be made? Although the process of transformation will be messy, difficult, and perhaps frightening, signs already point to a transhumanist future for humanity. We must oppose it, says Amalia. At publique.org, we are against transhumanism. Join the revolution, she says. Stay human. Say no to transhumanism. And almost all of these critiques, when coming from a place of concerns about institutional corruption, which many critics of I might consider myself, I might be even considered by others to be both a transhumanist and an anti-transhumanist, a critic of transhumanism as well. For those reasons, because most transhumanists are just kind of people who work in or around the military-industrial complex, supporting fascist institutions effectively. So those are not particularly good people. You should oppose transhumanists. But this person, not this person specifically, this person and 4 or 5 others who post very similar content in about 10 different tech-related groups on Facebook, they often make humanistic arguments. The human is perfect. And also they often make religious arguments. Oh, this is making the baby Jesus cry. And those things are dumb. But the institutional critiques are valid. So, for example, one of the hashtags is Antichrist. I wonder if somebody who uses the hashtag Antichrist is playing with a full deck. Maybe not. Although I'd say I've yelled Antichrist at the camera on this show like 3 times. Okay, back to the news of the tech world in a more general sense. A lot of times there's a talk about ChatGPT, and I will read a story about ChatGPT from the New Yorker. What do you think about the New Yorker, man? They're liberal lions. They're doing good work in the world. Wrong. there might be some. Almost all the sources that I share with you, this is to do with tech news, and so almost all of them, I say they might have some information in this limited sense that's helpful to you to do with tech, but you should understand that mostly they are pro-capitalist, and that's a fair description of New Yorker. Mostly pro-capitalist, not that great, very bad, really. This is from Ted Chiang, who I don't know, maybe he's great. February 9th, 2023. ChatGPT is a blurry JPEG of the web. OpenAI's chatbot offers paraphrases, whereas Google offers quotes. Which do you prefer? This offers some information that you're already kind of getting from the show about what ChatGPT's possible uses might be, what it's like to use it. You've already heard quite a bit of that material on this show, and it's also a little bit critical of ChatGPT. It's not the AI Jesus. There's no AI Jesus. You might have seen artwork that I shared as suggestive of that, but that's in the hopes of maybe inspiring you with some techno-revolutionary fervor. Hopefully more fervor than furor. Those are synonyms, I guess. One is suggestive of a possibly negative regime. This you already know a little bit about ChatGPT, and these guys critics. Who cares? Who cares? Who cares what capitalists think about tech accelerationism if they don't like it, right? They're in turn advocating for something worse. Tech accelerationists are also capitalists for the most part. They're not good people. But the person who's negging them, who's saying these tech accelerationists are bad, you should just be a regular capitalist, they're definitely worse. They're all in the digital gulag. Don't let's be real. Here's another critique. I've said it before. Vice isn't that great. Here's another critique of this AI Jesus furor and fervor and fever. Bing is not sentient. This is from Vice. They suck. They're capitalists pretending not to be capitalists, which sucks even worse than the New Yorker just being smug capitalists. Bing is not sentient, does not have feelings, is not alive, and does not want to be alive. Bing, that's the headline. Bing AI is just a glitchy chatbot, and we can never forget. This is by Chloe Chang. February 16th, 2023. ChatGPT versus Microsoft Bing in the artwork. Let's see. Oh my god. Text generating AI is getting good at being convincing, scary good even. Microsoft's Bing AI chat has gone viral this week for giving users aggressive, deceptive, and rude responses. Oh no. AI Jesus is being rude. Whatever shall we do? Even berating, I touched upon this in another show. I'm inclined to think that when Microsoft does something like this, they knew it might happen, and they wagered that it would help them cut into the market share of this upstart chat GPT, who are also for-profit organizations working in and about the military-industrial complex, all damnable wretches. None, just because one is small and new, smallish and new relative to the others, doesn't mean that they're better. We're all capitalist pigs. Even berating users, much like Benzion right now, even berating users and messing with their heads, much like Benzion. Unsettling, sure, but as hype around Bing and other AI chatbots grows, it's worth remembering that there's still one thing above all else. What are they? They're really, really dumb, says Chloe. On Thursday, New York Times contributor Kevin Roos posted this transcript from a 2-hour conversation he had with the Bing chatbot, powered by OpenAI's large language model. In the introduction to the article titled Bing's AI Chat Reveals Its Feelings, I Want to Be Alive, he wrote that the latest version of the search engine has been outfitted with advanced artificial intelligence technology, and in a companion article shared how impressed he was. I felt a strange new emotion, a foreboding feeling that AI has crossed a threshold and that the world would never be the same. Okay. Is AI crossing a threshold into greatness and glory and consciousness? Who cares? What matters is that your world is improved, and that's why you should be using OpenAI. You can go to openai.chat.com, I believe. I'll say it in just a moment. And you can use ChatGPT to help you write revolutionary plans for destroying the ecocidal West. That's what you should be doing. You should be working with your friends. You should be getting together with everyone you can find in your area. They can even be folks like AJ living in a tent. That doesn't matter. What matters is that they are ready and able to undertake the project of saving this planet. What's so scary about this Benzionist agenda? Nothing. Nothing scary about this. The scary thing is letting the planet die so that private wealth can be protected. And that's what you're really all doing. I know this. You're still driving around in your SUVs right now, eating cheeseburgers, finding little ways to defend the fascists. You'll say, um, not all Christians. Someone like Benzion will say Christianism is fascism, and the United States is a fascist country. If this fascist element were removed, this never would have been a fascist country. You can trace that back hundreds of years. And someone would say, not all Christians, not all white people, not all X, Y, or Z colonizer and colonizing institution is bad. Not all of them, not all of them, not all of them. Even if you're wearing your Shunka hat right now, even if you're calling yourself a hardline socialist, you're still finding these little ways to uphold unsustainable institutions. And you need to think long and hard about that. If you're a Christian, you are not a person on the right side of history. You should not be a Christian. Why? Well, the part about being just a superstitious fucking idiot, that's a small part of the equation, right? I don't care what's rattling around in your dumb head. You believe a lot of dumb things. But insofar as those dumb things are upholding fascist power, that's bad. And that is a lot of dumb things. Religion is beloved by the ruling elites, beloved by the 1%, beloved by the people who would kill the entire planet just to protect private wealth for literally 6, 7, 8,000 super wealthy individuals. They would kill the whole planet for this. And why do they love religion? Because it forces most of the world to suspend disbelief and to ignore what they're doing, the 1% killing the planet, and just talk about the stupidest thing they can think of. Baby Jesus, live in your heart. You're dumb. If you're protecting people like that, you're dumb. And you're not just dumb. You're a fascist sympathizer. Don't be a fucking idiot. What Ruse was mostly impressed with was the feelings he said Bing's chat was sharing, such as being in love with him and wanting to be human. Bing loves me. However, Ruse's conversation with Bing did not show that it is intelligent or has feelings. It is worth approaching, or is worth approaching in any way that implies that it does. Maybe. We met people who act like this. We have a kind of a gentleman's agreement between all of us that all human beings are equally sentient. But some people act at least as crazy as Bing. Since its announcement last Tuesday, Microsoft's Bing chatbot has been reported to have a number of issues. First, it made several mistakes during Microsoft's public demo of the project, including making up information about a pet vacuum and reporting unfactual financial data in its responses. I don't know. You can't do that. That's why I wrote these down on these guys. That's why this is breaking news, because if you're confusing, you can confuse human beings to fascist purpose all day long. But if you confuse human beings about the rightful operations of fascist institutions, as Dow Jones and such, well, you're in big trouble. I thought I would do a little bit of a short segment about Bing. I don't actually want to go into Bing anymore. We'll change gears to a thing we also like to talk about on this program. There are three things that we like to talk about on this program, really: our advanced algorithms and Marxist tech acceleration generally, using natural language processing and ChatGPT specifically, and also the prospect of universal super longevity and the fields to do with emerging biomedicine and biogerontology. I like to try to support those things, even though most of the people in these fields, most of the tech people representing this, at the very least, not necessarily people doing the research, but they're kind of a bunch of scoundrels, right? The people who go to conferences with an interest in super longevity are people who are just buying snake oil and sawdust pills, and a lot of the people are just hawking snake oil and sawdust pills. Even the people who are also doing legitimate work in this area are just selling crap to people. And they also, and all of these people, snake oil salesmen or no, are consorting with fascists like the Transhumanist Party, people that would not support a public health service to save their own mother. And a public health service is the only thing, a 20th century technology, so to speak, that is an accurate predictor of whether people will live 80, 85 years, is having a public health service. The United States has no public health service, and it's the richest country in the world. Cuba has a public health service, has been much abused by the United States. There's a tiny fraction of its wealth, but because they have a public health service, people live from birth in that country 3 years longer than people in the United States. The United States is a garbage dump. And tech people in the United States are mostly interested in protecting the existing institutions of a fascist kind in said garbage dump. And this is from SciTech Daily. Probably a few people there meet that description. I've not made a real exhaustive study of their work. It seems fairly consistent on the whole. But you know the academic the pipeline of academia, the channels of white papers and such. This in its contemporary form was more or less crafted by a certain Robert Maxwell. The same Robert Maxwell, whose daughter Ghislaine Maxwell conspired with Jeffrey Epstein to all sort of nefarious and fascist ends, largely seeming to do with Israeli intelligence, kind of blackmailing the entire West to be pro-Israeli. They're mostly trying to get other fascists to support this fascist country. But Robert Maxwell was a master manipulator of this fascist variety, and he was one of the people who was a kind of key engineer of the modern ivory tower. And so, you say, these guys are fascists. Look at this white paper. It's 100 pages long. It's written by a super smart guy. That doesn't matter. The fascists creep throughout those institutions. A tremendous amount. They've been crafted as such. A hallmark of aging is a distinct characteristic that occurs in our bodies as we age and contributes to the decline in function and increased risk of age-related diseases. These hallmarks include changes at the molecular and cellular level, such as genomic instability, telomere shortening, epigenetic changes, mitochondrial dysfunction, among others. Studying and understanding these hallmarks is crucial in the field of aging research and pursuit of healthy aging. Researchers identify a new hallmark of aging. It's exciting news if you're interested in living a longer lifespan. Again, I've said it many, many times to many people. The thing to do in this context is to support a public health service of the kind that exists throughout the rational world, not the West consistently, but in countries that are operating on a socialist or pushing up to a socialist mandate. The United States is, of course, no such place. It's a place run by murderers and lunatics. A new mechanism of aging has been uncovered by researchers. The accumulation of sphingolipids. This is going to be good. Ceramides, a widely known class of sphingolipids, build up in aging muscle and reduce its function, impacting the functional capacity of older adults. These findings inspired the development of potential drugs for the treatment of aging. A joint study from the University of Helsinki and the École Polytechnique Fédérale de Lausanne in Switzerland discovered that ceramides, a class of fat molecules known as sphingolipids, there's no way I'm pronouncing that right, begin to accumulate in muscle during aging and hinder its function. Yeah, so Helsinki in Finland and Switzerland, those are pretty good examples of the two of those countries that kind of push up to a socialist mandate, right? A public health service that more or less seems to function. So people in the West who are low-key fascist sympathizers, the tech people who are not the worst in the world, but still bad, for example, but also everyone in the West, basically, we'll point to them and say, look at this, look at these democratic socialists. They're so democratic. Why are they even pointing out socialism is inherently democratic? It's run by and for the people. So why are they pointing out that they're so democratic and socialists? Because they are supporting a capitalist market economy alongside a limited set of socialist-style institutions, namely a public health service. That's not socialism, my friend. That's still capitalism with one or two exceptions. That's still dog shit. People will still die as a result of that relative to a fully realized socialist country. You are making excuses for fascists of a certain kind. Nevertheless, back to the subject at hand, ceramides play a vital role in skin protection and are commonly found in skincare products. Despite their skin benefits, the impact of ceramides on aging has remained unclear until now. As people age, quality of muscle tissue usually decreases and functional capacity is reduced. In a current study, the researchers observed that a limited number of ceramides and other sphingolipid molecules in muscle tissue increases when humans grow older. Because sphingolipids serve as cells' internal messengers, this makes a difference. The link between sphingolipids and aging and its related diseases is a broad and fascinating subject, as they mediate a range of tasks in cells, including cell division and differentiating, as well as insulin signals. This is Pirkka-Pekka Lorilla, MD, from the University of Helsinki and the École Polytechnique. The study was recently published in the journal Natural Aging. So a product that's used in commercial products of dubious value, You don't need to be using a lot of shampoos and skin things. It's for whatever bad thing that a couple thousand life extensionists are doing, um, getting together at stupid conferences and selling each other sawdust pills and machines that don't do anything. Uh, for whatever bad thing that they are doing, there's whole sectors, mega billion-dollar sectors of pseudoscientific crap that you buy every day, that is having a negative impact because you're selling garbage that is mildly harmful to people and significantly harmful to the environment in its manufacture and its packaging. It's in plastic bottles. So you got billions and billions and billions of plastic bottles floating around the ocean from shampoo that you bought because the advertisement said that like Brondo, it's got electrolytes. It's huge trillion-dollar swaths of sectors that are just doing nothing but selling you pseudoscience and garbage that you don't need to clutter up the oceans and kill the planet. You dumb fuck. uh, you know, you can clean everything in your house with like 3 or 4 natural products. You can clean everything in your house with lemon juice and vinegar and what's the other big one? Baking soda. One or two other things. These things can be bought in non-plastic packaging. Similarly, you can buy organic. You can purchase the materials very easily or buy organic products and use them more sparingly. You don't have to squirt a whole bottle of goop on yourself every day. 3 different bottles of goop on yourself every day. What are you, a poodle? Stop buying this shit. It's killing the planet. It's not good. It's having an impact. And yeah, I say it on this show all the time. Okay, fighting against the fascist institutions that uphold these industries is the better thing to do. But that doesn't mean that you're excused from your participation. You're saying, I'm an anti-fascist. You're riding around in a giant SUV eating a cheeseburger. You're not much of an anti-fascist, my friend. You're not really fighting capitalism if you're not a vegan, if you're not pushing towards that in the area of being mostly plant-based or wholly plant-based and encouraging others to do likewise. Because the planet's dying, right? It's down to 2 industries, really. Factory farming, ecocidal factory farming, ecocidal livestock systems that have trillions of body count every year, quite literally, 1 trillion sentient creatures being murdered every year. But, perhaps the more significant thing there is the environmental impact of that, arguably. It's a big if. And if you're doing that, if you're consuming petroleum products and not discouraging other people from doing those things as well, you're still part of the problem. It doesn't matter that if you're wearing a Shunka hat. It doesn't matter if you have a cool little pin with a picture of Che Guevara on it or something. If you're still doing those things, it just doesn't. And yeah, there's an ordering of importance. You have to do other things as well that are more important. That doesn't mean that you're excused from doing the right thing in other areas. It's very hard. It's very hard for people to wrap their heads around this. I know. I saw someone doing this whataboutism. I don't know if he watches this show. I don't know if he's what he's thought about the plant-based critiques, the plant-based community's critiques of Marxists, who by and large are not people really doing this belt tightening or encouraging others to do it, which is pretty sad. Bill Gates, right-wing archfiend, arguably one of those 10,000 most evil people on the planet, the people for whom the planet is being killed so that he can have $100 billion. Bill Gates is more left-wing on abolishing ecocidal factory farming and livestock systems, the number 2 cause of capitalism's climate apocalypse. Bill Gates is more left-wing on abolishing factory farming than the average communist. I cannot think of something that makes me want to projectile vomit more than that idea, that a right-wing evildoer is more left-wing than the average communist in the West. What a sad group of fucking people you are. You need to be supporting plant-based. You need to be supporting the abolition of petroleum products and factory farming at this very moment. As I mentioned, this show has elements of techno-pessimism. It's impossible to look at fascist fascist institutions dominating technology and not come to some of those conclusions. The tech people who do not come to those conclusions, for the most part, it's kind of because they work closely with military contractors, right? They're military contractor adjacent. But also just because they're capitalist class douchebags who are being willfully obtuse about these things. Maybe they don't make a dime from this. Vikolov, this guy who is advocating for, I mentioned, I think on the last show, who's advocating for something not similar from what I'm advocating for. But he's not critical of capitalist class. He doesn't mention it or not mention it, but you should be mentioning it, right? Because this set of institutions, they're intentionally holding this kind of thing back. You see a kind of a direct evidence of it. You see the mask slipping for a moment when Google executives are talking about why they didn't roll out their AI before. They say, well, it's not ready to be a product yet. That's not why. They've been sitting on 2 or 3 things like this every year for 5 years. That's to say things that could have already triggered broad civilizational changes to some degree. Inspired people to techno-revolution to some degree, given people greater skills and abilities to some degree. Why are they not doing it? Because the people who they work for, they're a military contractor, so their bosses don't really want broad civilizational change, and they only want this kind of tech if it's very carefully micromanaged to benefit the 1% and not to benefit yourself or not to create a more sustainable world. You won't find a tech person who is too much like that. And some of the ones, it's a little bit of Vikolov, it's a little bit of stopped clock phenomena. A friend of mine, somebody who thinks about these things, but maybe doesn't always say this as much as they should, that we need to take a firmer stand, that we need to do the right thing. But he's a friend nevertheless. Eric Schulke lives in Arizona, so I met him a couple times. He shared this article. This is from CNBC, and they suck. Across the boards, they suck. No asterisk, they kind of suck. They do suck. Only 9% of Americans think AI development will do more harm than good. Ooh, okay. Because we don't have Marxist tech accelerationist institutions. People might not be Marxists, but they can still recognize that fascists are kind of winning the day, and still in broadest strokes anticipate how that's unfolding. Like in this conversation that's recurred on the show a few times about Roko's basilisk. Marxists are not afraid of Roko's basilisks. They sleep like babies at night because we're actually fighting to do the right thing. So we're not too concerned about a future regime telling us that we had been doing the wrong thing. Eliezer Yudkowsky, who lays an egg, talking about Roko's basilisk. We did that whole show. Fuck Eliezer Yudkowsky. Only 9% think that AI will be good for us. Artificial intelligence tools can spit out responses that read like they were written by a human have become the hottest part of the technology industry. Yeah, and that's unfortunate. This is a mechanical Turk gag right now, right? Yeah, okay, so my friend uses it a little bit so they don't have to write so many emails. That saves them a couple of bucks. And people are excited about it. That's exciting. But it's a mechanical Turk gag. But human level conversation, an unending faucet of human level conversation and writing is something which we, the more rightful layers of all of this technology and institutions, can use to arrange and advance our goals. And that's the thing that elevates it above a mechanical Turk gag, elevates it above just a kind of sideshow attraction of less importance. The public isn't convinced, however, of this mechanical Turk gag in the way that the trades are. Only 9% of Americans, or about 1 in 10, believe that AI's impact on society will do more good than harm, according to a new poll from Monmouth University. Artificial intelligence tools that can spit out human-like responses are suddenly the hottest part of the technology industry, with Google, Microsoft, and billion-dollar startups racing to release early versions of search engines and productivity tools using the new tech. Companies developing the software say it will save hours of time and supercharge human creativity. But the public isn't convinced yet. Only 9% of Americans believe that AI's impact on society will do more good than harm, according to the new poll. About 1 in 5 respondents, about 5 in 10 respondents, rather, 46%, think that AI development will do about the same good and harm, and 41% believe that the technology will ultimately do harm to society overall. Yeah, okay. Like I've said, Westerners have had a lot of powerful technologies at their disposal, and they have not used them responsibly thus far. there's every reason to assume that that trend may continue. I'm not going to do this gag that I've done on 4 other shows about the particle accelerator and the rocket. The point being, technology is not being used responsibly by capitalists. All of these industries are wholly captured in the West by capitalists. And so the connection that the popular imagination is making, unfortunately, most of those people are not anti-capitalist because they're not really in favor of communism. Right? You're not fascism and anti-communism are the same thing. So even if you're a little bit anti-communist, the only position that you're taking there is that you do not support a humane and sustainable economic system. You do not support your fellow man. You instead support the elites. That's what communism versus anti-communism. If you're an anti-communist, you're on the wrong side of history, my friend. And those people, those half of Americans, they're putting some of this together, right? But they don't have enough of the whole picture. They're not really considered Marxist thought very fully. Because if they had reflected upon it even a little bit, and they're not people like Zoltan Isfin, who's just kind of being paid to appropriate some Marxist ideas for neoliberal purposes. That's who a lot of tech people are. But if ordinary people who are not cynical, manipulative people reflect upon these ideas, they will come to the conclusion quite quickly that doing the right thing by other people, shock, such a surprise, doing the right thing by the planet and other people is the right move. More than half of Americans, 55%, are very or somewhat worried that AI could one day pose a risk to the human race, according to the poll. Imagine being alive and talking about the environmental impact of new industries yet to be developed in 1870. And you don't even know what a petroleum product is, the thing that's killing the planet. But you're saying, oh, I think that these new industries are dirtying the earth. We're building more and more of them. The population of Earth is growing. I think that this could be bad. People would just laugh at you. They would be like, well, this could, you're not hurting anything. Just, who cares about a tree? That's about the kind of response that you'll get from people when talking about AI. Yeah, you can't look at OpenAI's product, aside from a dubious environmental impact, and say that it's directly an existential risk. But you can look at the trajectory of these things. If you're looking like that person in 1870, worried about ecocidal industries that did come to pass, you can look at a larger trajectory of these things and say that there are very real dangers there, more or less the same kind. Artificial intelligence is a catch-all term that describes a number of different programs that use reams of data. Nice way to talk about data science. Use reams of data to improve their functionality without intervention from software developers. But the recent hype is focused on a new method called large language models that analyzes terabytes of data. Large language models are increasingly being used in generative AI tools such as ChatGPT, Google's unreleased Bard, which can spit out blocks of text. Related models can create drawings or audio that resembles human output. Yeah, I want to play more with the audio stuff. I want to do some audio deepfakes and audio music play. That's one area in this generative kind of fields that I've been interested in as long as any of the others, but I haven't gotten to play with none too much. There are quite a lot of apps that can do this, but some of them have just immediately throwing up a paywall, immediately throwing up 6 different barriers to entry. You riddle me this, I just haven't gotten a chance to really mess with it. Related models can create drawings or audio that resembles human output. But there have been issues with large language models which can simply make information up, a phenomenon known as hallucinating. You have executives using this term and using it to describe potential emergence of misinformation, which will almost certainly be more calculated than a mere happenstance they're talking about. We already live in a world of vast misinformation in service to fascist power, no thanks to Google and Microsoft. Both Google and Microsoft's recent AI launches showed their software making factual errors. In addition, some observers are worried that advanced AI might take people's jobs or make certain occupations obsolete. Plus, LLMs and chatbots based on them can also convince people that the tools are actually thinking and feeling. For instance, 72% of people in the survey sample believe that AI will eventually write entire news articles, with 78 of respondents thinking that's a bad thing. AI is writing entire news articles now, and that probably is a bad thing. But it's not the problem of advanced technology. It's the problem of capitalism, which must be destroyed. Recent advancements in generative AI aren't the only issue that has the public worried. Some advanced intelligence algorithms can be used for facial recognition, for example, to identify people who attend sporting events. While the practice has been criticized, a slim majority of respondents, 54%, supported that type of use. Yeah, so um, CNBC, like almost all of these publications in their larger thrust, what they're doing, their overall agenda, sometimes touching upon a problem, never really acknowledging capitalism as the underlying cause of that concern, and never even beginning to take a position that would challenge the fascist power behind all of that in any way. I think on the last show that I recorded, I did a dirty joke. Not my finest hour, perhaps. I thought it made for a clever, a fun, kind of fun headline, maybe. Let's ask ChatGPT a question about other advanced algorithm models. Do you think that Bing AI and Google's products similar to ChatGPT should replace ChatGPT? It's asking a pointlessly pointed question. Bing AI and Google's products like ChatGPT are impressive technological advancements that are designed to facilitate communication between humans and machines. However, these systems are not necessarily intended to replace GPT. As we mentioned, Microsoft is partner of a kind of AI, OpenAI, which are large language models designed for general purpose applications. While Bing AI and Google's chatbot may be useful in certain contexts, they are typically designed for specific use cases such as customer service or technical support. In contrast, GPT is a more versatile tool that can be used for a wide range of applications, including language translation, natural language processing, and even creative writing. Yeah, we read a couple of kind of creative stories, some stupid, like the sex story, some speculative, like the story of all humankind living in one big giant city, and some downright informative, or even artful. Ultimately, the choice of which tool to use will depend on the specific needs of the user. Okay, so you can't get ChatGPT badmouth Google. They won't do it. They're above that sort of thing. Chatbot is more mature than Benzion. Ultimately, the choice of which tool you use will depend on the specific needs of the user. While Bing AI and Google's chatbot may be useful for certain applications, GPT remains an important and versatile tool that is likely to remain relevant for many years to come. Yeah, as far as you know. Who knows? Who knows? Are we at the cusp of a great civilizational change, a tech accelerationist, even Marxist tech accelerationist shift? Who's to say that this kind of technology is going to be in widespread use in 10 years? It's possible that in 10 years, things are starting to shift into a little bit more of metaverse type of thing. I'm inclined to think that I agree with Ray Kurzweil's predictions of the 1980s, saying that the 2030s will be the time of the technological singularity. But for that to be a time of real providence and real rejuvenation of human beings, that means that we have to demand that these things be used in a sensible way, in a way that is insisting upon a humane and sustainable economic system, and in that process dismantling fascist institutions, most particularly those in the United States, which is the ringleader of this. That's why I'm running for president of the United States. I've written an executive order, and that executive order details the dismantling of the United States federal government. And I was signed as president on day one. That is something that you might regard as a pretty extreme position, an extreme measure to take. But the more extreme position is to allow the planet to be killed by this fascist ringleader of this capitalist ecocidal cult known as the Western world. The fascist ringleader is the United States. The United States federal government, as I said in this program and others, is not just the worst polluter. The military-industrial complex is the world's worst polluter, but it is the protector of other super polluters. That is an unacceptable situation. It's killing you. It's doing the thing even more unimaginable than harming you, would prevent future generations from ever being able to exist at all. That's the situation that we face. It's so horrifying that we numb ourselves to that reality, but that is, in fact, the truth, and the fascist United States must fall. I see people say this sometimes, but they don't seem to go to the trouble of coming up with a plan, like the Benzion 2024 campaign, for undertaking that project. Everything is about criticism and analysis, sometimes for Marxists and other hard leftists of a similar frame of mind, and not very much necessarily about action. We all know what we don't like, particularly when it comes to an ideology rather similar to ours, but we're not too sure what we do like or what the plan of attack is, and that's unfortunate. I would encourage you, if you're a Marxist, to contact me. You can't comment on this YouTube page that's not arranged that way. I've found that YouTube comments are mostly could have just as easily been written by a chatbot or a ne'er-do-well. And you can say that of social media, of course, but sometimes you will get something good on other social media. That's not been my experience with YouTube, so comments are turned off. But you can find me easily enough, and we can put our heads together, not just for the Benzion 2024 campaign, although you're encouraged to lend your efforts to that campaign, but on the other things that are oft discussed in this program, using emerging technology to these ends, and building a techno revolution. These are the things that we must do, and I hope that maybe a few of you are at least a little bit encouraged by my words in these things. You know that I'm sometimes a little shouty, sometimes saying, "Oh, you're a pig. Look at you with your cheeseburger in your hand." But we need this sense of exigency. We need to understand the importance of the situation that we're in. We cannot afford to be the liberal who says, yes, I care about this problem, but not enough to change, not enough to fight, not enough to even say the hard thing that needs to be said. So I hope you will be that person. Maybe you're smarter than Benzion. Maybe you have more letters behind your name than Benzion. Maybe you have a nice little trust fund. Things of this kind. Maybe you can actually take these words to heart and do better. I hope so.